This is Shaky Town. That's Gene George. I'm Brodie Hubbard, and what can I tell you? Gene, we were talking in the midst of the Olympics, which I've been watching a lot of the men's and women's basketball, and 3x3 teams, and off the heels of the All Star team, I happened to sneak in there a clip of listening to Dana Carvey and David Spade on the Howard Stern show while promoting their podcast, Fly on the Wall. And they were discussing like all-time SNL cast members. And I did listen to some of the first episode of their podcast, which has been on a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And heard them talking a little bit about that too. Like, oh, he was the best, she was the best. Who's known more for what they did on SNL as opposed to outside of SNL. And you and I talked a while ago about doing kind of like a Laugh Olympics style, pitting teams against one another. And so I had the idea of, well, let's start with what teams would we draft for best SNL cast members ever, using the model that I'm seeing in the Olympics for basketball, a starting lineup of 5, a complete team of 12. Mm-hmm. And so you and I decided to go for this exercise. What did you find, without spoiling any names yet? What were you surprised to find while you were compiling your list?
I think the core people, there's no surprises. I honestly feel like it's almost a no-brainer. I mean, it's kind of like USA basketball at the Olympics. Like, I saw something on Twitter or somewhere where like 3-on-3 basketball was put in there so that other people can win medals. So I think core stuff. Anyone who's watched Saturday Night Live, unless they watched it like from 1980 to 1981, will have a list of people that are the gems. Now, the thing that kind of surprised me, thinking about it a lot, is in my picks, I consciously avoided people who I feel they were great on Saturday Night Live, but they shine brighter in other media like films and things like that.
Yeah.
So the other thing, it's not really, again, it's not a surprise, but the number of really great straight players, that play the straight man really, really well. There's a lot. Saturday Night Live has produced a lot of wacky character people, but they've produced a ton of straight men, who can just deadpan their way through something and kill.
Yeah.
So those are the and then probably the final thing that I found is there are 3 people on that show that that are the same person.
That are the same what now?
The same person. Sorry.
The same person.
Yes, the same person. We can talk about that.
Okay. I want to say what I did to compile my list. I will tell about some of the surprising things to me and maybe surprising to others who would also be asked to pick a list. What I did was arranged it by number of seasons, starting with 1 and going all the way up to some may be surprised to find out that there is somebody who's been on the show for more than 20 years. We'll talk about him in a bit. But, I kind of picked like, okay, let's start with this class. And then, Gene, you and I independently arrived at, let's not include anybody who was on 1 or less seasons. Yes. And so, then going to, okay, who's from 2? Who would I pick from 3? Who would I pick from 4? And like, that's my short list. I should say number of seasons, not season 1, not Ray for Primetime Players, but like who was on there for 4 years? Who was on there for 7 years? The biggest surprises for me in looking at who is on only 1 season, there's definitely some big stars like Ben Stiller, Damon Wayans, Sarah Silverman, Janine Garofalo, who, famously only did one season or less of Saturday Night Live, Randy Quaid. Um,
Mhm.
there were people who were credited but never really appeared, like Emily Prager. Um, um, I think Catherine O'Hara never appeared, but was like hired for a season and then never showed up. I was surprised that Billy Crystal was only on one season.
One season. Oh yeah. No, that's that. I didn't write that down on my notes, but yeah, 100%. I swear Billy Crystal was on that show for like 5 years.
Yes. Um, and looking at people who were only on 2 seasons, you think of Robert Smigel, very famous for his writing. Don Novello, Father Guido Sarducci, Michael McKean, who I would think of in a whole bunch of other vehicles. I know that he was on Mr. Show, and I know he was on a couple of seasons of Saturday Night Live. But I think the biggest surprise for me, I had Chevy Chase in the running for quite a long time. Chevy Chase made the finals of my final list, and I eventually decided, hey, I have to stick with my rule. He's sometimes credited with 2 seasons, but he really left during season 2.
Yeah, he noped out a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was so hard for me, and I fell down a rabbit hole of Chevy Chase YouTube clips last night, and like he simultaneously makes me laugh so hard with the simplest of gestures or speech, whether it's on Community or an interview. He's just naturally like one of my top 5, maybe top 3 funniest people in the world, but also just like such a problematic person. Not problematic in the sense that, as far as we know, that he's like, murdered or assaulted anybody. Although he's definitely had some questionable comments and very.
He's a dick, and but that doesn't necessarily mean that. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, not to interrupt, but the reason why I started putting a category of people who shined in other categories is
Yeah.
Chevy Chase, 100%.
Yeah.
Because I didn't go down the rabbit hole because I immediately tripped to, you know what? I love his work, but Caddyshack is one of the greatest movies ever made, and it's one of the greatest movies ever made because of a Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think, uh, I think the, he was a repertory player. He was a, one season asterisk person, but no, the people that I have on that movie star, I called it the movie stars on
Yeah.
my side. Yeah, Chevy Chase, 100%. I get it. And I agonized over it for about 30 seconds until the light bulb went off.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you get to like 3 seasons or more, you start to get a deeper roster of candidates. The biggest star who was there for 3 seasons was Chris Rock.
Yeah.
And I decided not to ultimately carry him over because I still felt, looking at the list, we probably should do 4+ seasons. And also Chris Rock, I think, while a great legendary stand-up, brilliant dramatic actor, I don't think of him as a sketch comedy person. And
even though he was really good, Nat X is still one of the best sketches.
Yes. And he would be a contender on the In Living Color draft that hopefully we eventually do.
Did I mention I also have a future exclamation mark category. So yeah, Chris Rock went into that category for me.
Yeah.
I had no problem putting him. He's got a bright future, and hasn't been a movie star per se, but he's done a lot of good work
For sure.
Yeah.
I would like to know 2 or 3 of the people you absolutely hate's a strong word, although there are 2 people I'm going to say hate and didn't include. And then also, if you could give me a couple of names which I think everybody would agree are notable, but you didn't carry them on for whatever reason. Maybe it was because they are in that category of way bigger after SNL or outside of SNL than in SNL. I would like
to. Hate is a strong word, and I will use it in this category. Chris Kattan, Rob Schneider.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Chris Kattan, Rob Schneider. I never well, Rob Schneider has also proven to be a chud,
Yes.
but I never connected with what was there was someone made someone made a joke in something I was watching relatively recently. He really likes Mango or
Yeah.
whatever that Chris Kattan character was, and I lost my shit because nobody likes that. Nobody, and yeah. So I just never grokked with it. Fallon's a close third.
Fair.
Um, you know, on both on SNL and off. I don't have. He's a dial tone for me, man.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't hate him, but I don't acknowledge. I do not prefer to acknowledge his existence. And whenever there's like a funny Fallon clip that Instagram serves me or whatever, and it's funny, I'm like, it's all oftentimes funny, not because of his participation in it.
Fair. Yeah.
So yeah,
I
that would be my like, you know, I could probably nitpick a few more people into that category. Um, but yeah, that's mine.
I never considered Rob Schneider, which says a
Oh, I
lot.
didn't consider. Oh yeah, no. This is
No,
no.
I mean, I forgot that he was on the show. Like that's how little I think of Rob Schneider.
Making copies. It's
Because
the
of
Broadster making podcasts. The Podster, Podinator. Yeah.
and that's all on him and his buddy Gina Carano, who has me blocked on Twitter. Horatio Sands for being a groomer. Enough said.
Yeah, I'm if we're talking about questionable behavior off
Yes.
set, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I just Horatio Sands. I mean, from a all-star point of view, just yeah, whatever. He's another one of those dial tone people.
Fred Armisen is my dial tone. And I was somebody who did enjoy Portlandia, but not because of Fred Armisen's contribution to it.
Right.
Although he might be responsible, and I used to be a big fan. I just think that there's things about him which are sleazy to me, But
he's a drummer, man. He's a drummer.
People who would tell you the same about me. So, as far as like big people who would carry on to the list, I mean Fallon's one of them. Tina Fey, Amy Poehler would obviously be on the UCB All-Star team, but I decided Seth Meyers. There's a lot of Weekend Update people I didn't carry over. Norm Macdonald I didn't carry over because for as brilliant as he was on Weekend Update, he really showed his brilliance in stand-up and in movie projects and things like that. But yeah, I just that certain group of people, and I get that they were head writers, but this isn't a head writer.
Yeah.
All-star team. This is a cast member all-star team.
Yeah, and I mean really sketch. Yeah, because I would have put Michael O'Donoghue on the
Yes.
All-Stars.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, he did do sketch, and he was I as this podcast is record, he's one of my favorite writers, comic writers of all time from Lampoon days on.
And you know, Beats is our Shaky Town All-Star.
And there you go.
Yeah. All right. So looking at your I want to say
are we gonna do top 5, back 7 or whatever?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out because I think we should save the number 1 draft pick, which we both independently arrived at. And if you're watching, put in the comments who you think the number 1. I'm going to start doing that more YouTube interactive stuff. Like, subscribe, put in the comments who your number 1 draft pick is.
You know what I want to know? What you think.
Yes, I want to know what you think. I will also say that I did have an eye on representation. I thought it was important that it not be all white guys. And because of the strong history of, and this isn't thanks to Lorne Michaels, this isn't thanks to anybody who cast the show.
Yeah.
This is people who have emerged on this show, but there is a history of great Black performers on Saturday Night Live. And a lot of those folks.
Garrett Morris was way too good for that room. I mean, overall, I mean, pound for pound, he was the best person on that show with the most experience and the most, talent. and he got to play Blackamore Giacomo. So
Yeah. I think Bowen Yang will definitely be a future SNL All Star. But to me, I will say also, I tried to have some representation from different eras, but it's hard. And that was one of the things that I texted you yesterday. Dana Carvey had said on the podcast that he was talking to Spade and he was talking to Rock, and he said for his money, 90-93 is the best. I don't know that I can really argue with that, because a lot of my favorites, and it has to do with when I was a teenager, I'm sure, was
it's definitely strong, and I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I do think that I really do think that the last 6-7 years there have been bright spots. I know everyone hates on SNL, and it does institutionally suck a lot. It's kind of baked into the process that it's going to kind of suck.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, as someone who's gone through UCB, and seen a lot of sketching, seen a lot of writing, and all that stuff, there's a lot of stuff that sucks, and there are a lot of people, a lot of the players, and especially I'm sure on your list and on my list, elevate material that normally would be ridiculous, you know, and not very funny.
Yeah. Quick, 2 more names that I didn't carry through, and you can plead the fifth if they will end up on your list. I didn't end up choosing Will Ferrell or Kristen Wiig. As much brilliance as they did on that show, not everybody could make my team, and same with Adam Sandler, Chris Farley.
I'll tell you, half of your Ferrell Wiig didn't make it on my list.
Cool. Well, let's start then with I'm sure of my 5. I'm not sure of my back 7 yet. I'm thinking we'll either come to a consensus or we'll have our 2 teams. So you start with whichever one you want. But we're going to save our number 1 draft pick for last.
Yeah. Well, here's we talked a little bit about how I broke things down.
Yeah.
And I did give myself a lot of consolation prizes and people who are movie stars. I also did, and I was going to ping you about this, but I kind of did it late last night. I did a special category, guests who should be cast.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then future people who are going to do well in the future, and too many straight men, and then the same people who are the same person. So let me do I'll start with my and I also, hey, let me make sure I got the right number of people here.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have an extra person somewhere, because I thought I had 11 and 1 because I pulled Weekend Update. I pulled a separate category for Weekend Update.
Okay.
Just for my own. So let me. I'm gonna. Why don't I kill that one, because that's the bottom one of these. Norm Macdonald. I put Norm fucking Macdonald. So
Norm is on your team.
Norm is on my team, specifically in the Weekend Update slot. I kind of looked at it as he's the kicker.
Okay.
He's special teams. Norm Macdonald. Specifically for the Weekend, I love Norm Macdonald. He's, God rest his soul. He's, but man, rewatching the OJ era Weekend Updates, like a dog on a bone, man. Like he grabbed it and shook it by the neck until it was dead, and then picked it up and shook it again. Like just watching the glee that he had in jamming it down Simpson's throat and damn the torpedoes full speed ahead. That is just it's marvelous. It is a marvel. Yeah. So Norm Macdonald, but specifically for Weekend Update.
Let me respond to that.
Yeah, sure.
I have a controversial pick for my team.
I think I know who it is.
I think anybody who saw the opening of this episode, it's obvious. Dennis Miller.
Yeah, it was close.
Dennis Miller to me defines I think Saturday Night Live without Weekend Update was essential. I think in the late '80s, early '90s, that Dennis Miller was part of the cast. And I know it's like I said, I'm not vouching for his current material. Most
Yes,
recent,
he's a chud. It's fine.
He's a bit like Quisling at the Dinah Shore show. Cha.
Yeah, thanks.
That was my tribute to it. Convoluted Dennis Miller analogy.
Dennis Miller analogy.
But I think he's essential. I think he made Weekend Update.
I don't disagree.
Yeah. So on the team, if not the starting lineup, who else you got?
Well, let me see. I kind of got to kill somebody on this team.
Yeah. I had a prediction of who you were going to draft. Tell me if I was wrong.
Yeah.
Sarah Sherman?
No.
Future All Star.
Yeah.
Sarah, aka Sarah Squirm, she is somebody I would be friends with, and I don't mean that in the general sense that you think you could get along with Taylor Swift as your buddy. I think literally somewhere in our social circles, Sarah Sherman and I have people in common. Like, she's from Chicago, and I think that's if she were an LA person, I would have definitely known her. Like, she works with Alex Phillips, who I'm quasi friendly with. Like, I don't talk to him much, but he's a filmmaker who I said very nice things about his movie All Jacked Up and Full of Worms, and he was from Chicago, and they like do stuff together. He directed a music video that she was in. Like,
she's a fellow traveler. She's 100% a fellow traveler. No, I'm 100% down with that. I get it. I like the stuff that she's doing. I like the body horror, body dysmorphia. Yes. Gore and clownishness is like chef's kiss. Like that's, it's agreed. So no, I think my list is probably a little more orthodox.
Yeah.
It's governed by the Eastern Church of SNL rather than the papacy. So am I going to go do another one?
Yeah.
I have Farley.
Okay.
In the back. Again, watching that clip from the Stern show and the clips that, this is going to be a through line through a lot of these choices for me.
Yeah.
The people who commit to a bit.
Yeah.
I am there for. That is my jam. And Chris Farley, with his hair askew and screaming about how he doesn't wash between his crotch and his leg often enough, and he lives in a van down the river. Like, I just have a soft spot for it. So Farley's in, not top 5 per se, but I might need to let me kill one.
I will say to counter that, and not that this person won't end up on your list.
Yeah,
but I chose Belushi. To me, obviously not ready for primetime original, but there's so much of what he did on Saturday Night Live that permeated pop culture, and without Belushi, you don't have Farley. I think Chris Farley would have told you that himself. And definitely a starter for me.
He was my number 2. He was my number 2 that I right after Chevy Chase because I agree, but I'm thinking of Belushi from the Blues Brothers Animal House side, where he came out on Saturday Night Live and broke out because of his performance on SNL, but he's a movie star, and his early death denied us 30 more years of Belushi doing crazy stuff, doing dramatic stuff, because he's another one of those guys that I think he could, he was looking at doing dramatic projects, and I think he had the chops for it. And the stuff, some of the stuff that he did seriously, I think he would have been bigger than SNL, and that's kind of where I put him.
There,
rather than we need another B sketch.
Yeah. Speaking of that Carvey Spade podcast, or rather Stern appearance, I will say now, I really thought hard about David Spade, who's actually one of the 3 or 2, I'm trying to remember, Saturday Night Live cast members I've met in real life or been in a room with.
Yes.
And we can tell those stories.
Proximity.
Yes. Well, him I directly talked to. I'll tell a quick story now. So Melissa Visanor, I performed the same show at El Cid, but did not talk to her. We both met Ann Beats, and it was in Ann Beats' home. David Spade, I saw as a Borders Books and Music clerk shortly after his. This was one of his first out in public appearances since the whole assistant thing that was a nightmare where he was attacked. And he tells jokes about it now, but like it was really scary. And I was like, I saw him and I just very gently went up and like, do you need help finding anything? He's like, I'm good, brother. And that's the extent of my interaction with Mr. Spade. But I did choose to put Carvey on the team. Carvey to me is a starter.
Yeah. I hear you. I don't disagree with that. I think if it were a 15-person squad, he'd definitely be in there. But I think some of my choices are fairly orthodox. Okay. But I don't know. Should I do one?
Yeah. I've got Norman Farley for you so far.
Okay. And what have you done? You got
Miller, Belushi, and Carvey.
Okay. So talking about too many straight men. Tim Meadows.
Yes.
Tim Meadows. Everybody, I mean, again, there are so many choices for good straight men but I really like Tim Meadows. I like the cut of his jib. I like his delivery. He's great in everything. And he can go weird and still stay kind of in that deadpan. And that's something I really like. But yeah, Tim Meadows. Tim Meadows in the Census Taker sketch, probably one of my top 5 sketches of all time. Which reminds me of something else I got to write down.
He's on my team for sure. I don't have it in my starting lineup.
Yes,
but he's on my team.
Yes.
He's like he would be the first person to the first sub in.
Yeah, sure.
We also, in talking about people who were there for a long time, looking at the list of people, like the people who are there the longest, the top 3 are Seth Meyers, who we both agreed, as a weekly update guy and head writer and more of a famous talk show host now, just not on our choices. I'm curious about Daryl Hammond and Kenan Thompson. Daryl Hammond was on for 14 seasons. And then Kenan Thompson is who we referred to earlier. He's been on 21 years. He's been on almost half the time that Saturday Night Live has existed, which is...
He's literally been on like half his life.
And half the show's life. Like
half the show's life. Yeah, no, seriously. Yeah. Like just shy of 50% of the run of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Certainly, he's been on half the run of the good Saturday Night Lives.
Yeah. And because of that, he was a must for my team. Like, it seemed ridiculous at this point for somebody who's contributed so much to the show. And I will say, campaign for there to be more Black women on the show. And he's like, I'm not dressing up as a Black woman again. Like, you hire real women on to be on the show, not me like cross-dressing as a joke. So
yeah, agreed. I do not have him on my list.
Okay.
I love Kenan. I really love him. He's another one of those where he can play it straight, he can play it slightly goofball, or he can play utterly deranged and does it well every time. Again, if this was a 15-person squad, he would 100% be on there. I just, I had to make cuts.
Yeah.
And I think I have some people in there who well, at least I have at least one person in my list who benefited from Keenan putting his foot down and having enough clout after 20 years of being on the show with Lorne Michaels to say, not doing drag, hire more people, hire ladies. If you want me in sketches, it's not going to be as a lady.
Did Hammond make your list, by the way?
Hammond did not make my list.
Yeah, that was a hard one, but
yeah, he did not make my list. And again, it's the too many straight men. And I think between Tim Meadows and TBD, I think I got it covered. But yeah, Hammond's great, and again, he's an anchor guy. He's a solid foundation. But again, if we're doing 10, 12 people.
Yeah. We are back on the YouTube channel. We are back in the podcast feed, and we are also on social media on X and on Instagram at ShakyTown Radio. There's a blue sky as well, so check that out and read up all on the archives at ShakyTownRadio.com.
So speaking of Kenan Thompson and advocating for more people of color and especially women, Leslie Jones.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Good pick.
Leslie Jones. Again, she's another person that she has an energy and a commitment that is, top notch. And she's a little off kilter in all the things that she does in the best sort of way. Like the example I will show and use is she has a tiny bit in the Undercover Boss Starkiller Base sketch with what's his face and
right.
Yeah, thank you, Adam Driver. I don't know why I can't remember his name, but the way she delivers "I want my muffin, Matt" to this day, like if someone's not getting something done, the first thing I think of is "I want my muffin, Matt." Yeah, Leslie Jones.
I loved her Weezer skit, or her performance in the Weezer skit, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't end up picking her partly out of not enough awareness on my part for all of her work on the show. There is an era there that I wasn't tuned into. And my sense was that she probably wasn't used enough on the show. And I mean, she wasn't on it in my estimation here for that long. I think she was a 4 or 5 season person.
Something like that. She did a lot of Weekend Update chair bits.
Yeah.
And again, I really love those. They were much more like monologues, and things like that. Cool.
Who else do you want to throw in there?
Let me check that off. So
I will say a choice that I didn't make was Maya Rudolph. She would have been like number 13. Maya Rudolph like almost made it to my final cut. I decided that what I really know her from and like her from are guest host appearances and other things she's done, and I think she does a lot of great work, but had to keep it to 12. So she was literally my 13th.
I picked Maya Rudolph.
Okay. Cool.
Just for the character work, and I found myself thinking about things like whatever it was, Bronx Beat, where she and Amy Poehler.
Yes.
It's just so just all of the things that she can do. She can sing, she can dance, she can do silly voices, like a utility player.
Yes.
Like 1,000% utility player. And it was like I was looking at Amy Poehler and Maya Rudolph, and I was like, I'm picking Maya because of the multi-talented utility player. Just like I picked Norm Macdonald for as the special teams guy.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Speaking of hard choices between two, and speaking of utility players, I did consider Nora Dunn, who I think did good work, but as far as doing great work, and one of my starters, Jan Hooks.
Are we in the starters now?
I'm just kind of going back.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I think I have two more in the backfield.
Yes, no, for sure.
Okay, sure. No. Go.
I'm still unsure of my alternates. But I did want to mention, yeah, Jan Hooks has done, you definitely got to link her with Carvey. Like I think of church lady skits and stuff like that, and her Tammy Faye, but I mean, but the singers that she did, the lounge singers things she did with, I know there are a lot of lounge singers on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, right.
Specifically the one she did with maybe it's more of a cabaret act. I don't know. With Dunn.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really sad when she passed. It is also odd. I remember when Saturday Night Live actors passing away was a rare thing. Like Belushi obviously died young. But now, like looking back at this list, it's like, oh wow, a lot of these people are gone.
Yeah.
So, tell me some more of your alternates or back
Well,
seven.
I think probably the most controversial backfield I have is Gilda Radner.
Yes, tell me about that.
Out of that original cast, I feel like she deserves a spot.
Yeah.
And I had to put her somewhere, and I think I got ringers in my first squad.
Yeah.
But what can you say? I mean, she's really just kind of the best person that Saturday Night Live ever produced.
Right.
Like she had that kind of whimsical but kind of edgy thing nailed. A great character work and great commitment. Again, commitment to me. One of the reasons Eddie Murphy is in my movie star category and not in my front line or back line is because he's great at things, but you never felt like when he did Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, it was hilarious. But I never believed him as Mr. Robinson. I believed him as Eddie Murphy doing a really funny sketch character. And Gumby too. It's like commitment will win me over 100% of the time. And Gilda Radner is like the queen of commitment on that. Everybody else on that did great in the first couple seasons of SNL. But she's like, she's something else. You can tell she's something else in that crowd of people that are all really good sketch players.
Everything agreed. I will tell you how she did or did not end up on my list later. So I will talk about Radner later. Right now, I would like to hear your seventh.
My final backfield.
Yes. So Norm Macdonald, Chris Farley, Tim Meadows, Leslie Jones, Maya Rudolph, Gilda Radner, and
Kristen Wiig.
There you go.
Same kind of. I mean, I feel like she almost ended up in the movie star / future exclamation mark category. But again, commitment to character, and being able to underplay things as well as radically overplay things. And I think the Lawrence Welk sketches, man, the Dunas sketches, like those things kill me every single time. I've seen them 400 times and I laugh every single time. They're never not funny.
I'm going to try to fill out my alternates list and please shout out why you didn't include him or if I've put somebody on your starter list. So I had Dennis Miller, Tim Meadows, Kenan Thompson. Looking at another long-term player who, in looking at her history, I realized how important her contributions were to the show. Cecily Strong, I put on my set.
Yeah, I think I might grandfather her into the future exclamation mark. I agreed. A good writer, strong character. I think it's just the VIP section is a very, very big one if we're going to include all the VIPs, and they're probably only exclude like 5 or 6 people out of the entire cast that's ever been.
Absolutely. Another personal preference and thinking about like who did I remember a lot, who did I who stood out on the show a lot for their cast, and even if they've done things outside the cast that are great, like who's a solid Saturday Night Live player? Molly Shannon.
Yeah, Molly Shannon. Um, that's another one. Molly Shannon, like there's that Molly Shannon, Sherry O'Terry, um, for blanking. It's Pat.
Oh yeah, Julia Sweeney. Yeah,
Julie Sweeney.
Sweeney
There's
and
that
O'Terry had really good mixers
there's
both.
that yeah, there's that journey person, like they can do anything kind of characters. Uh Casey Wilson's like that. Casey Wilson in more recent years is like that. Uh um 80 Bryant is like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of those kinds of players. But yeah, but again, the VIP section is enormous and the team is very small.
yeah. I definitely had to pick between, for representation on the list, people who could bring different things. Um, I kind of did some either ors, and I think this is my most controversial
Sure.
back seven. But somebody who was on the show for a long time and who I think was just solid and has proven themselves since they recently left Saturday Night Live, Bobby Moynihan.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
could kind of do it all.
he's another utility player. He's another utility player. He's like put him wherever you need him. And he can play dumb, he can play smart, he can play ridiculous. He does a decent straight man. Again, I'll use he's another standout in that in Undercover Boss.
Yeah.
Where he plays a stormtrooper. It's like he's playing it straight for the most part, and he kills it. He kills it. I'm down with it.
Yeah. My last alternate, my last second squad, I think also will be a controversial pick, but not for the reasons that they are not worthy. But this is like watching the Team USA women's basketball team and wondering, why isn't BG starting? Well, BG's good, but you gotta, other people, you gotta start out first sometimes, and
Yeah.
bring BG in there to get the great offensive rebounds and put the ball in over everybody's head. And for that, my last pick on that squad with Dennis Miller, Tim Meadows, Keenan Thompson, Cecily Strong, Molly Shannon, Bobby Moynihan is Dan Aykroyd,
All
who
right.
has all the classic skits, right? And weekend updates for that matter. And obviously has had just as much, if not more, of an amazing career outside of Saturday Night Live. Not ready for primetime player original, but yeah, I couldn't not include him, but he just didn't make my top 5 because of, I've already given you my 4 of my 5, and we'll go back to that list in a minute, but had to have Aykroyd on the list.
Yeah. Well, Aykroyd's in my top 5.
Cool. Let's talk about your top 5.
Well, I think there's more to talk about Aykroyd. Let me start at the bottom, because this one needs some, not some splaining, but there's stuff behind it. Andy Samberg.
Interesting. Yeah.
Andy Samberg, open parentheses, et al., close parentheses. Lonely Island.
Definitely in my oh, sorry, I was just gonna say in my 15 to 20 range, not even necessarily because of whether or not I dig him, but because I know that his contributions were important. So
yeah, that's really it. Is I dig him. I think he's a great comedic actor. I think if he had joined the show as a cast member and not as part of the Lonely Island with Yorma Sakon and the other guy whose name I can never remember, because it's not weird enough. No, if that represented a sea change in SNL moving into the digital era, into the new world of comedy. I do think if he joined as a cast member alone, I would put him in the future exclamation mark category. Yeah. But because I think he's done some, I mean, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is like one of the best shows, and his goofball antics are the linchpin of that. But yeah, Andy Samberg et al. Is kind of that's my first out of the. I won't say it's. When we were texting about this, I'm like, I'm just gonna wing it, and and you were like, exclamation mark, and I'm like, what I meant by wing it is I did most of these. I did a pass through with just a gut feeling, and then I rearranged it after the fact. But my first draft, a lot of the stuff in my first draft stayed to the end. And Samberg was one of those that I knew I wanted to include. I didn't know if I wanted to put kind of into the same category as the Weekend Update special teams kind of thing.
Right.
But I think it's important enough to talk about as a core. I would put that out there on the field.
Copy that. So Dan Aykroyd and Andy Samberg, 2 of your starters. Who's your third starter?
Bill Murray.
That was my movie star category, why I didn't include him, but I definitely.
So here's why I didn't. I put Chevy Chase in the movie star category. I could easily have done that with Bill Murray. But what I'm thinking is, if I was seriously going to put together a sketch show, and I had, and these guys had to be they had to be in every sketch, and then the utility players would be peppered throughout. Bill Murray, 100%. I mean, just his comic sensibility, really informed that next decade of comedy. Right. I mean, Ghostbusters. I mean, I think an argument can be made that Belushi and Bill Murray changed like the next 10 years of comedy.
Yeah.
And put that, and Chevy Chase was there too, because he kind of played that same smarmy, kind of glad handing kind of dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bill Murray, 100% Bill Murray.
Very cool.
Just his character work, while still being Bill Murray the whole time, is just one of those things that kind of charisma doesn't often translate and is consistent, but it's consistent.
Very cool. Before you tell the fourth pick,
my top two. We're up to my top two.
Before we get to your top two, I'll go to my 4 of my 5. Because we already talked about him. Again, I'll just say Dana Carvey, Jan Hooks, Gilda Radner, and Jim Belushi were my musts.
Jim or John?
John Belushi.
Wow, because I was gonna say, dude.
like this whole time, I'm like, I meant Jim Belushi, who was a cast member for one. No, not Jim Belushi. Great on Twin Peaks.
Brian Doyle Murray is what I meant instead of Bill Murray.
Jim Belushi is in one of my absolute all-time favorite movies, Real Men with John Ritter, which I got in trouble with my friend group for making them watch one night. They hated it, but I think it's the funniest thing ever. But yeah, I think we picked people for similar reasons, although those similar reasons ended up with some different people. I do notice that Carvey and Hooks are from a particular era of Saturday Night Live, and Radner and Belushi are from the other particular era, and then everybody on my other part of the squad, it's a good, from Aykroyd to Moynihan and Strong is a good range. Because you got Miller in there, you got Meadows, you have Kenan Thompson, who overlaps a lot of periods. So I feel, and Molly Shannon, I feel like I have a good representation of all the eras. I'm guessing neither of us chose from the Doumanian era, but
Charles Rocket.
And I want to talk about some of those other eras before we talk about our number 1 draft pick, which we both chose. We knew psychically, like maybe it's not that psychic, but maybe it's just common sense. We'll talk about that person in a moment. So besides who was obvious to us, who was that other pick, that number 2 pick? Kate
McKinnon.
Wow, that's a surprise for me. For me, for me, I felt like McKinnon and Strong were, both sides of the same coin, or just like I was like it's kind of like that Sherry O'Terry or Molly Shannon. I picked Molly Shannon, and to me that was kind of an equal thing. Like I Cecily Strong's work resonates more with me than Kate McKinnon's, and so I chose her. But
again, it's the commitment thing.
yeah,
The way she does the characters that she does,
yeah,
is you can see the commitment is 100%.
Yeah.
And not that Cecily Strong is bad at that. I think that Kate McKinnon is just definitely, I want her on the team.
Yeah.
Because she can do all of the things and commit 100% to those things.
Yeah. So before we talk about our number one draft pick, I'm going to really quick run down the list going from longest duration to shortest duration on the show. And I'm just going to throw out some names that I'm curious about your opinion on. Again, these are ones we haven't already talked about. And if there's one we miss entirely, it doesn't mean we dislike them. It's just there's some names.
Screw those guys.
So, I think Colin Jost and Michael Che are, they've been there a long time, and they're in like their weekend update guys, but talk about how we were only going to pick like one weekend update person each. Al Franken, I thought really, I thought about Al Franken, but it just seemed weird to put a U.S. senator on the list. Jason Sudeikis just doesn't resonate with me. I'm sorry to say.
Okay, so it's the too many straight men category.
Okay.
That's so it's Hader, Sudeikis, Armisen mostly, Daryl Hammond, Taron Killam, Beck Bennett, Alex Moffat, and there are several other sort of generic white dudes that are on that list that I just didn't bother because those are the top. And again, almost everybody on that list is decent. They've done decent stuff in that, but again, too many straight men. Sudeikis is I should probably put Sudeikis under the future exclamation mark category, because I think he does good work in that slot. I just feel like I feel like a lot of the other people, like Tim Meadows, can play anything. Not just deadpan.
Would you include Chris Parnell on that?
Oh yeah. I totally missed. Yeah, Chris Parnell. I thought about Chris Parnell. Chris Parnell almost made it in there somewhere, but I think between Tim Meadows and Aykroyd, that's a dream team of people who can play absolutely straight edge.
Yeah. Where did you fall on Pete Davidson?
I like him. I think he's funny. I think he's funny in the show. I'd never had him. I saw his name and just went, oh, he's not going to. Again, I think because I went with my gut. I didn't have a place for him on the list. I'm not familiar with his work. That sounds like I'm being snobby. It's not him. It's me. Like he was on the show, 2014 to 2022. Which was a very tumultuous time in my life. He has said some of the sketch where he plays the completely oblivious dude thing is brilliant. Some of the monologue stuff that he did, chair stuff on Weekend Update. One of the funniest things I think anyone's ever said is he said about himself. He says, "I look like someone who doesn't have enough blood," and I'm like, that's a brilliant burn, self-immolation. But yeah, I don't think I ever was really, he wasn't in the running.
Yeah, this isn't a criticism of Jay Farrow, but this is a criticism of them not playing him enough, probably. But I was shocked that he was on for 6 seasons. In my memory, he'd been only on 1 or 2.
He did really good character work. He's another one that the catchphrases like some of his catchphrases are still repeated in my house to this day. He played the principal, put upon principal, school principal for like the school assemblies and announcements. Attention teachers and students. The zoo one, especially. Attention teachers and students. The turtles are not Ninja Turtles. Do not feed them pizza.
Love Anna Gasteyer. Love Nassim Pedrad. Lorraine Newman.
Yeah.
Almost should have been on this list. Just I couldn't make it all, not for primetime players. You know, her and Garrett Morris were unfortunately the sacrificial lambs. Joe Piscopo was interesting.
I almost said Joe Piscopo just as a joke.
Yeah. Honestly, people like him and Mary Gross, I feel like I know their work outside of Saturday Night Live more. There was Colin Quinn's another one who's like, Colin Quinn to me will always be Remote Control.
Remote Control.
His Comedy Central show.
Yep.
Not so much his Saturday Night Live work, although he was good. Ellen Cleghorn, Melanie Hutzel come from a certain era, and I thought they were great. Jim Brewer was only on 3 seasons. I thought he was a guy.
Felt like he was on, like it was like Martin Short. Felt like he was on that show for 73 years.
Yeah, yeah. Jay Moore was somebody who I also think of more outside of the show than on it.
I feel like he was. We have David Spade at home.
That's fair. And like we were joking about earlier, tons of people from like this Doumanian era that. But
Charles Rocket is not a punchline. I really do like Charles Rocket. I think he could have, if he hadn't literally fucked it up. I think he could have been a decent, a straight guy in the. I mean, if he'd have survived the purges after the return of Lorne Michaels, but he did great in the other things that he did. Love him in Max Headroom.
Love him in Earth Girls Are Easy.
Earth Girls Are Easy.
It's heartbreaking that he took his own life. Like it's just horrible. It
sucks. It really does suck. So yeah, I do want to put my plug in for Charles Rocket, especially for talking about also Rand's.
Yes, Mark McKinney would be a Kids in the Hall team. You can't take him. You can't trade him out of Kids in the Hall.
Yeah, it would be kind of weird.
Yeah,
even though he is brilliant, he is 100% brilliant.
Yeah, and you couldn't trade Jerry Minor away from the Mr. Show team.
No.
I was shocked that David Koechner was on for as short a time as he was.
Yeah, totally.
Because he would have been somebody I would have considered. Then I realized, oh no, I just like him in a bunch of other stuff.
But see, that's like he's kind of in the future exclamation mark category.
Yeah. Gilbert Gottfried was on a season. Christopher Guest was on a season. I think everybody knows Anthony Michael Hall and Robert Downey Jr. were on season.
Yeah. Harry Shearer did that weird split season too.
Yep. Harry Shearer.
And Christopher Guest and Harry Shearer did do that the best short film, the synchronized swimming. Was that Christopher Guest and Harry Shearer and Martin Short?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Harry Shearer and Martin Short.
Did we already talk about how Laurie Metcalf may or may not have been on screen for something? Obviously,
I think we texted each other about it.
Yeah, became more famous for like Steppenwolf Theater and then Roseanne, obviously, and then a bunch of other stuff. Like she has a very important role in the Scream franchise, which I will not spoil for those who've not seen any of the Scream. You should. And she ends up being a more important character than you might realize, oddly enough. All right. So without any further ado, I think it's time we talk about A. Whitney Brown.
That's right.
No, not our number 1 draft pick. Great guy, but was mainly behind the scenes. Did weekend update stuff, and I think he was one of the naked guys in that Naked Guy sketch. Tim Kaczynski, another person who
Tim Kaczynski, yeah.
Who I know from stuff, but I don't think
Police Academy and other things. Tim Kaczynski definitely is one of those guys that's he did really good character work.
Yeah.
It's just again solid character work, but that's it's like it's like major league ball players that are like, yeah, he was a good utility man and he batted like 280. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But there are guys that are way better.
Before we talk about our number one draft pick,
Yeah.
actually, there are two more people I want to ask about, and then just did I miss
Well,
anybody?
I want to do my guests who would be cast.
Really quick. Will
Okay.
Forte, awesome.
Yeah.
Victoria Jackson, wacko in real life.
Yes, Chud.
And then there was one more like person I just wanted to mention who I think has done their greatest work outside of Saturday Night Live. Kyle Mooney, who I didn't realize was on there for 9 years, but I know him from like the show that he did on Netflix. That's really good.
Yeah.
And strong writer, but
yeah. See, that's why Andy Samberg's on there.
Yeah.
Because Andy Samberg paved the way. Andy Samberg of the Lonely Island paved the way for the Kyle Moonies.
Also, Jane Curtin. We cannot not talk about Jane Curtin.
Yeah, she and Garrett Morris are like the spine of that early cast.
Yeah.
And without them to hang some of the insanity on, and the fact that she was the one of the leads in the Coneheads, like just shows how like she can do straight up and fucking ridiculous.
We also didn't talk about Mike Myers.
Yeah. Like, I have him in. Well, that's why I'm saying the movie stars: Chevy Chase, Eddie Murphy, Mike Myers, and John Belushi for me. There's a few others that we've talked about, but yeah, Mike Myers. That's I have him as a movie star.
Yeah,
because he did great work there, but like I mean, everybody does it's obvious that he wants to be the modern day Peter Sellers, which is not. Again, shoot the moon, my friend, but close.
What are some of your other lists you mentioned?
Oh, so the guests who would be cast?
Yeah.
John Hamm.
I knew that was going to be like on top of the list.
Timberlake.
All right. Doesn't resonate with me, but okay.
No, I'm not saying he's my favorite. I'm saying he would be a perfectly acceptable cast member.
I didn't even think about him. That's what I'm saying. But I did think John Hamm, yeah, for sure.
Steve Martin.
He practically was. You know?
I know.
George Carlin deserves an honorary spot somewhere.
Yeah, but he didn't do sketches though. I mean, and Christopher Walken.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who does not want to watch Christopher Walken step through a sketch?
Yeah, absolutely.
Every week, I would tune into that show every friggin' week.
Alec Baldwin is practically a cast.
Alec Baldwin, yeah, I totally spaced on Alec Baldwin. Somebody else. I thought of somebody else too. But you can tell that John Hamm would in an instant be like, "Oh, I'll do this."
Yeah. I mean, he was on Sarah Silverman program. He would have ended up on Saturday Night Live, I think, if Mad Men hadn't come along. Honestly,
that's true.
All right.
Right. So, shall we do it? Shall we do the?
Yeah, a name conspicuous by his absence in any of our discussions so
far.
Yeah,
we've been skirting around this.
Yeah, but even Dana Carvey and David Spade said, and I'll let you say the name.
Phil Hartman.
Yeah,
the late great Phil Hartman. Yeah. Everybody's that is an aphorism, that is a cliche, but I mean, honestly, he's on every other list that I have.
Yeah,
like he movie star, the future, Too Many Straight Men. I mean, he
I think the only thing he didn't do, I don't ever remember him on being on Weekend Update.
No, I didn't. I don't. That's. I mean, he's on almost every other extra list that I have on this.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's the only thing I literally don't.
I'm sure he did something on Weekend Update. I'm sure he did a character or something. I can't remember if he did, but yeah, it's most definitely Phil Hartman. I mean, his career arc touched Pee Wee Herman, Pee Wee's Playhouse, like, I mean,
Simpsons.
Yeah, The Simpsons. Saturday Night Live, news radio. I mean, a ton of things. His cameo in So I Married an Axe Murderer
Yes.
is literally the best part of that movie, which is a funny movie.
Yes.
But the moment he comes on screen to the moment he leaves the screen, 100% hilarity.
Yeah.
He was an artist. He was a writer, and a great comedian. That's another one of those tragedies where we lost 40 more years of Phil Hartman.
Oh gosh, I could only imagine the stuff he would be doing now. I
Yeah.
feel like we would have gotten a good Trump impression on him.
Oh my goodness. I mean, but that's the thing is there are a few cast members that are utility players or that could pick up anything and take and run with it. If we're keeping the sports metaphor alive, there are very few that they would be able to do that and nail it and do it brilliantly. Yeah. And Phil Hartman, that's the man. That's the pinnacle.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it any better than Gene did. So what I'll do is just review our teams, and I'll make note of who were on both our lists. So Gene's back seven were Norm Macdonald, Chris Farley, Tim Meadows, Leslie Jones, Maya Rudolph, Gilda Ragnar, and Kristen Wiig. Mine were Dennis Miller, Tim Meadows, Kenan Thompson, Cecily Strong, Molly Shannon, Bobby Moynihan, and Dan Aykroyd. Our starters, Gene's were Dan Aykroyd, Andy Samberg, Bill Murray, Kate McKinnon, and Phil Hartman. Mine were Dana Carvey, Jan Hooks, Gilda Radner, John Belushi, and Phil Hartman. We both had Radner. We both had Aykroyd. We both had Hartman. We both had Meadows. Was that the only crossover? That might have been the only crossover.
Well, a lot of yours that you didn't have that I have, considered for other things, or again, it's just there's no wrong answer.
Sure. But let's say we had to have let's say we had to combine lists and had a combined starting five. It would be, according to this, Radner, Aykroyd, Meadows, Hartman. Who would we pick as our fifth?
I'll take Dennis Miller.
Okay. Okay. I think that's good. I was gonna say Denitra Vance.
Charles Rocket. Denny Dillon.
Denny Dillon. Oh, we didn't talk about Denny Dillon.
I love how Denny Dillon. I love how it's like because I guess I do like Denny Dillon. Denny Dillon again. I mean, she was only on for the one season, but what was the show she was on? She did a Women in Prison show.
Women in Prison, yes.
And but she did another show where she played like a sassy secretary or something. But I like her work. Again, it's like Charles Rocket. They didn't necessarily hire terrible people.
No, Chris Elliott was on the show for a season.
Yeah. I didn't talk about the same person.
Yeah.
These three actresses are the same person. Chloe Fineman, Heidi Gardner, and Abby Elliott.
Yeah, I like Abby Elliott on The Bear for sure. And
yeah.
Chris Elliott and Abby Elliott are the only father-daughter team in the cast.
You got the Belushi brothers. You got the Murray brothers.
Oh yeah, Brian
Doyle Murray. Yeah.
This was fun.
I like it.
I don't think there's enough people in Kids in the Hall or UCB or Whitest Kids You Know or gosh, what other sketch shows are there?
SCTV or are you talking with historically or just
yeah. I mean, like you know,
the State.
Oh yeah,
Exit 57.
We might have to do a State draft. I couldn't do an SCTV one. That one was just enough before my time that I don't know.
Well, and the answer is everybody.
yeah.
Honestly, everybody.
Yeah.
Like there's no. That's the thing is SNL has gone on for so long that there is an almost infinite pool of people to choose from, whereas SCTV was much shorter. And honestly, everyone is. I mean, I can't even talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Catherine O'Hara. I mean, Joe
We don't have
Flaherty.
we don't have time to. The clock's running out.
Yeah. Anyway,
Shot clocks run out. We have to go.
Tim Robinson.
Yeah.
Tim Robinson was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Odenkirk.
Great writer.
Yeah.
All right. We're about to get cut off, so
Bye.
that's the draft, and I'm out of here.
Bye.